This is also something that I think about in the context of educating kids. It's one of the very first things that I look at when I walk into an education space is, what is this space optimized for? What is this environment designed to invite children to do? When you walk into a public school classroom, the environment is designed for a very specific set of activities. The classrooms are designed to house a body of 20 to 30 students and a singular teacher, and the whole space is structured so that all the children are in rows facing the adult at the front of the room, and the adult at the front of the room has the big imposing desk, and they're sitting facing all of the children. And the environment is structured for order. All the desks are in rows. Everybody has a specific space that they're supposed to be in. Everyone's focus is on the teacher at the front of the room. You have to be visibly looking away or disengaging to stop paying attention to the authority figure. And the space is designed for teacher to student, authority figure to captive audience, lecturing, and in many cases, one directional conversation. Everything about this space deters creativity and deters independence. You are visibly, obviously disobeying or disengaging from the organized structure if you do anything other than sit quietly in your spot in your row. And this incentivizes behavior, which is sitting still in the classroom, being quiet, behaving, doing your work within the amount of time allotted. And the space actively deters any sort of divergence from that norm. As a sidebar, if you've ever read any John Taylor Gatto, highly recommend that you do. One of the things he talks about is the subliminal messages or the secondary messages that you get from being inside of a public school environment for 12 years of your life. The idea of his books is that children are learning the very obvious lessons like reading and writing and arithmetic, but they're also learning things like their value is determined by their class rank, and their behaviors are dictated by an authority figure and require the approval of an authority figure. And this space in which they are spending their time is directly reinforcing that. On the flip side, the more you set up an environment in which kids can be independent and do things for themselves, the more you're reinforcing for them their own agency and their own independence and their own competence, all of which are, from a self-esteem standpoint and a self-image standpoint, are incredibly valuable lessons to be teaching your kids. One of my favorite things to see is a play kitchen, very child-sized, appropriately sized to the age of the child, in or directly next to the full-size kitchen in a home. The idea being that kids want to mirror the behaviors of adults. This is how they learn. This is why play is so important, or one of the reasons why play is so important. Kids watch the behaviors of an adult and then copy that behavior. They see dad out in the driveway working on his car, and then they go try to climb under the car too, or climb under a play car, or climb under a cardboard box that they're pretending is a car. And they also are working on the car because they're trying to figure out how to be an adult and how to interface with the world by play acting and role playing all of the different facets of that reality. And in the same vein, kids love playing kitchen because they love watching an adult in the kitchen making the food that is the sustenance for their bodies and for their existence, and then play acting the same actions and trying to figure out how to mirror that behavior as effectively as possible, with the long-term aspiration, even if it's deeply subconscious, being able to actually do that for themselves. I also love seeing home environments that have a child-sized cutting board and knife, or maybe a child-safe plastic knife, but that the child can use to make their own snacks alongside mom and eventually independent of mom, so that they can be independent in feeding themselves, providing themselves with a snack if they so choose. The kitchen is another place where environment design is really important. If you have a pantry that's full of candy and sugar and things that are going to spike your child's blood sugar and detract from their ability to focus, and that you don't want your child consuming, you have to be a moderator of that space. You have to dictate when your child can and cannot have access to things in the kitchen. Whereas if you have a space that's full of snacks that you want your child to be eating and you're happy if they do, you can allow them a very self-directed relationship to the kitchen space, especially as they get older, where anything that they see they can have, and they don't have to ask your permission before getting something to eat or making themselves a snack. And that's, one of countless examples of where environment design can come into play. But it crops up again and again that what you have in the space is a series of options. And the more those options are things that you'd be excited to see your child say yes to, and that are reinforcing both the behaviors that you want them to exemplify, but also the self-image that you want them to have, the perceptions about how they interact with the world that you want them to embody, like being a student in a row in a classroom facing the teacher, waiting for the authority figure's permission, versus being in a space where there are tools and things for them to use and problems for them to solve. And the entire design of the space is such that it implies and communicates your trust in the child to solve these problems and to figure things out for themselves. All of these things impact the way a child thinks about their relationship with the world around them.